like to teach you how you can help your students tongue much more quickly on the clarinet, and also a really useful technique to play staccato on clarinet. And the two are related. This is called the stop tongue technique, and it's one that's kind of unique to a reed instrument. So a lot of people aren't familiar with it. It's a very good one to know. For staccato in a lot of instruments, we create staccato simply by stopping blowing between notes. And we can do this on clarinet, and for sure it's a technique that is a good one to master. However, it's a really challenging one for younger students to do well. Inevitably, when they try and do staccato, the start of their note sounds great and the note kind of fades out and you end up with not so great tone. It kind of fuzzes out and it's hard for the students to get each note to speak. So I like to teach my younger students stop tonguing and to use that almost exclusively for their staccato until they're really mature with how they use their fast airstream, and then we'll kind of experiment with an air staccato as well. It's an easy technique to teach them, but it sometimes takes a week or two to really master, and then kids will pick it up super quickly. So with stop tongue, we're actually going to be blowing the whole time. Normally in tonguing, we'll have our tongue touching the reed to start each note. It's as if I'm going. With stop tongue, our tongue comes back to the reed and ends the note. And this is a new technique for most people. It's like I go. I'm still blowing for that split second while the reed is closed and sound is there. But that means, if anything, I have extra air pressure. So when I take my tongue away to start the next note, it will start instantly. That's the reverse of what most clarinetists do, where they stop blowing. They have to try and get their air going again, and they have trouble getting the next note to start. So the way to teach this to your students, I have a really simple exercise that you can do with them. I have them play an open G. It's a note where all the holes on the instrument are open. And first of all, just blow and hold it with steady air. And what I ask them to notice is what their air feels like when it's uninterrupted and as even as possible. Very easy for all students to do. Then I'll ask them to do normal tonguing. It's as if we're going to go T, 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 and the idea is our breath has to stay exactly the same as it did in the first video. If I was doing inside-out tonguing, here's exercise 1. Exercise 2, my air is the same. It just happens that my tongue is interrupting that. If I do that on an open G, I should get a very steady, even sound, and we can hear the tongue starting each note. The third part to this exercise is where their tongue is going to be learning something new. We're going to ask them to start each note with their tongue, and then to have their tongue come back and close it off. And we're going to have half sound and half no sound. So it's almost like I'm going on, off the reed, on the reed, off the reed, on the reed. Now this is an exaggerated exercise. We're holding the reed shut for longer than we normally would in a piece of music. Tone might not sound great for this exercise, and you might even have a student getting air leaking out the sides of their mouth. That's okay. This is a training exercise, so this is not about good tone. This is about teaching you to blow quickly and your tongue to end the note. So it would sound something like this. If I do that on an open G, here's the effect I get. And I'm going to have my finger illustrate what my tongue is doing inside my mouth. Now remember, tone's not going to necessarily sound great for this exercise. That's okay. What I'm listening for as a teacher is that they get a clean end to that note. Often at first, the tongue doesn't quite know how to do it, and you'll kind of get da-loomp, da-loomp, some crisp, some not so crisp. You're telling the students to listen to get an instant end to the note, and this takes a little bit of practice. Sometimes though, if they sit and do 10 or 12 in a row, it drastically improves even in that short time. You know, our tongue is the most flexible muscle in our body, so it actually can learn these things pretty quickly. Once they get good at that, then we go to step 4 of the exercise. And it's very similar. We're going to keep our air blowing the entire time. Our tongue is going to start the note, it's going to come back, and it's going to end the note. But now we want it to come back as quickly as we can. So I imagine I have a giant rubber band holding my tongue to the reed. It's stuck. And so then when it comes off the reed, it's going to want to spring back. You can hear it. If I were actually blowing, I would just be getting very, very short notes. As a training exercise, what we're aiming for here is the shortest, choppiest note possible. My tone's not going to sound great at all, but I'm teaching my tongue to come off the reed and come back instantly. Here's what it will sound like. No, I sound like a blatty, awful tone. I've got air leaking out, but I'm doing the exercise correctly. So it's kind of fun for students to have permission to maybe have bad tone, but we're really still emphasis on blowing the whole time and getting that clean ending to the note. Now, I'm focusing on making the note as short as possible. That's the student's focus. As a side effect, because my tongue's coming off the reed and zooming back on, my tongue is moving very quickly. And what will happen if you get a student working on super short notes as part of their warm-up routine, they start to be able to tongue way more quickly. And it's fascinating how quickly their tonguing speed can improve when they're working on this. So after we've done those choppy little open Gs, then I'll have them alternate between a long quarter note to establish that the air is going really solidly, and then 4 staccato 16th notes. What we're listening for is that all 4 are exactly the same length. The long note kind of helps us reestablish that our air is solid. If a student starts huffing, in other words, their air is not blowing steadily, you'll hear it fuzz out a bit. There's a clear difference between the tongue ending the note and our air kind of fading away on the note. Now for fun, you can have a student sit down with a metronome and time how fast their most comfortable speed is on that. So let's say it might be somewhere around 60 the first day they're trying this, and you challenge them to try and increase it a little bit each day. And most students can probably increase their speed about 12 metronome markings in a week if they're doing it every day. What I love about this exercise is they don't have to do it for hours and hours. They have to do it really well for about 2 minutes a day. After 2 weeks, their tonguing is noticeably faster, but it also allows us to play a staccato without the air huffing out, especially in the high register. It allows me to keep blowing the whole time, and that staccato is just going to come out more easily. So the game with them is go from slow to fast. What you're really listening for is that they're ending the notes cleanly. I have all of my young clarinet students do all of their staccato in this way. We call it the stop tongue method because it's the tongue that's stopping the sound on the reed. It's a great way to get your students blowing the whole time, and I really encourage you to teach it to all of your clarinet students.